On Monday the 8th of July, the Church of England General Synod, which is the governing parliament for the Church of England, voted to proceed with plans for same-sex blessings for homosexual couples in the Church of England. They also opened the door to exploring the possibility of Church of England clergy being allowed to enter into same-sex civil marriages and to not have to abstain from homosexual sexual relations. The current guidance for clergy is that they are allowed to enter into a same-sex civil partnership, but only on the basis that they abstain from homosexual activity. Importantly, what is new is that the Church of England have voted to allow standalone services for these blessings to take place. Already, churches are allowed to do these prayers of blessing for same-sex couples in acts of worship. A standalone service, however, let's say on a Saturday, could look very much like a wedding. And previously, bishops had said they wouldn't introduce standalone services because they would look like a wedding. Nevertheless, the bishops changed their mind. The motion which voted on this was only passed very narrowly. The Church of England is made up of three houses: the House of Bishops, the House of Clergy, and the House of Laity. The vote needed a simple majority in every house. And in the House of Laity, the vote was won by 95 for, 91 against. So a swing of 2 people in the House of Laity would have made the whole proposal collapse. The vote would have failed. The motion would be dropped. But unfortunately, it passed. Normally, with votes of this significance, a vote would require 2/3 majority in each house, and many evangelicals spoke out against the process by which these prayers are coming in the debate. The bishops, knowing they do not have the majority needed to force through a change in doctrine, have instead played trickery with the processes and the law, the canon Church of England law, in forcing this through only on a simple majority. Now, what's important to realise is doctrine technically hasn't changed. There hasn't been a vote to change the doctrine. But what has happened is something is being brought in that is unlawful because it is contrary to doctrine. The bishops are claiming these prayers aren't contrary to doctrine. Clergy that enter into homosexual relations, that's not against the doctrine. But the doctrine does teach that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that sexual activity outside of marriage is a sin. The bishops are gaslighting us into thinking there's no change in doctrine, nothing's gone wrong, nothing to see here, and forcing it through. So what now? Well, before the Synod, actually, a coalition of evangelical groups called the Alliance, which includes leaders from HTB, New Wine, Church Society, Renew, the Church of England Evangelical Council, they've come together under the Alliance to signal and state their opposition to the progress. They said in a letter to the archbishops before Synod, if the further departure from the Church's doctrine suggested by the Synod papers does go ahead, we will have no choice but rapidly to establish what would in effect be a new de facto parallel province within the Church of England, and to seek pastoral oversight from bishops who remain faithful to orthodox teaching on marriage and sexuality. We will encourage all church leaders who are in sympathy with the Alliance to join the parallel province. Now, it's unclear exactly what the details of the province are going to be, but it is encouraging this firm stance to say, we will not tolerate this. Our conscience cannot tolerate this. Obedience to Christ cannot tolerate this. And so after the vote went through, the Alliance have now issued a further statement saying, we do not believe it is possible for us to flourish within the Church of England's current structures. We need a structurally secure space for the over 2,000 clergy supporting the Alliance and the churches they represent. In the coming months, at the invitation of the Bishop of Leicester, we will be engaging in direct negotiations with the House of Bishops. We have made clear that we are not leaving the Church of England or the Anglican Communion. So it's going to be a challenging time navigating this climate, knowing there is a risk of discipline from the bishops if we refuse to acknowledge them. We need to look to be faithful to Christ, to warn false teachers about their teaching, and to protect sheep from being led astray. That's why a clear division is needed. But at the same time, there are concerns about what such a structural differentiation could look like and what it could permit in the rest of the church. The Church of England Evangelical Council have already offered a separate Ephesian fund for churches to divert their giving so it doesn't get fed towards liberal churches, and have begun the process of offering spiritual overseers who will take the place of the bishops somewhat informally, providing oversight to churches. Again, who knows what the bishops are going to do in response to this? Who knows what the bishops are going to do as we separate from false teachers? But we must pray for protection, pray for wisdom, pray for faithfulness as we seek to be obedient to Christ above all things. It can be easy to look at the vote and go, what if about the speeches? What could we have done to maybe persuade those two people? But we need to trust that God is on the throne. We need to trust that He is sovereign, and somehow He is working all of this for good and for His glory.